His names, we need to know about them, how to apply them, ponder the meanings behind them.
New class alert! SunnahFollowers presents the names of Allah. Please join us every Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard with Sister Samar. Streaming on all major platforms. Right here, channel SunnahFollowers.
So for today's session, we start with our supplications. May God accept our deeds. May He rectify them if we go wrong. And may He accept them and soothe our hearts and enlighten our vision. آمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. All right, so for today, we'll be doing 4 new holy names. And as you know, we're not only doing the 99 holy names, but there are other names as well that are worthy of our attention and understanding. As you also know, we are in the habit of looking through those names from an analytical point of view. And we also try our best to see ways in which we can apply these names in our everyday life. So let us start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All right. So the names for this session, they are al-awwal, wal-akhir, wal-zahir, wal-batin. Okay, so again, those names are the first, the last, the manifest, and the intricate, so or the hidden. So here we have those 4 holy names, and we want to see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually manifesting those names in our everyday life in different ways, and that we just need to see through this. We need to see through our worldly attributes to get to know more about His divine attributes. Okay, so to start with, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Al-awwal, by the way, the first, or al-awwal, it's not only about being the first in line. He is actually the eternal. So it's like there is no point of start for Him, and there is no ending point for Him. He's al-akhir, the last, meaning He is eternal. And so there is no time, there is no space for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, let us dig deeper. So for al-awwal, the first, Allah is al-awwal, meaning who existed before all creation and beyond the constraints of time and space. So this divine name, is my voice clear?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So this divine name emphasizes that Allah is the origin of everything. So no being or thing existed before Him. So contemplating the name Al-Awwal inspires believers to place Allah at the forefront of their lives, acknowledging His primacy by beginning every action with His name and aligning intentions with His guidance, just as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us. Right, so this is a very important point. We just need to stop here for a second and tell you more about that. That God is quite literally the first. He was before anything, and we cannot conceptualize this because He is not limited by time. So He is also the last because He's our destination, and He remains when everything else goes away. So there are deeper meanings here too. We prioritize things sometimes before Allah, and then we wonder why we feel a spiritual void. We may wonder why bad things happen. Why we cannot seem to get something right, or why nothing satisfies us despite our pursuit of material means. So to know that God is al-awwal, the first, is to see him before seeing anything else. That's the beauty of that name, because even the physical means start with him. So everything starts with him. So by the first, if you understand the reality of that name and what it actually beholds, we will understand that it is so important to place God as the first for everything else in our lives. So this leads us to the other name, al-akhir, or the last, because one of the scholars, Sayyidi Ibn Ata al-Sakandari, he said that he who is illumined at the beginning is illumined at the end, meaning God is a destination. We start with him in everything that we do so that we can end up with him. So we praise him at the end of every matter and seek forgiveness from him for any shortcomings. All right, so back to our PowerPoint. Let us see more about this. Allow me to share the screen one more time. Okay, so looking here, we can see that by al-akhir, or the last, there are other ways of actually seeing this. Okay, so al-akhir, meaning Allah is al-akhir, the last, the ultimate reality that remains when all else ceases. Okay, and everything in the universe returns to him, which reminds us. I just need to present this instead of, just 1 second, please. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. I'm very sorry for this. Something is not working. I was saying that today was a bit strange. Things were happening. All right. So if for some reason the PowerPoint is stuck. Okay, I will be doing this in a different way. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم يسر لنا أمورنا وفرج عنا كروبنا يا أرحم الراحمين. Anyway, let me just tell you a few things until we get back to our PowerPoint. So embracing the understanding of al-akhir actually encourages detachment from fleeting material attachments. So it fosters deep reliance and trust in Allah's eternal presence. Right? So that is why understanding those two names are really very important when it comes to our religious and spiritual journey. All right. Okay. So if we move on to this one here, which is the divine unity in time and space. So we need to understand a few things here. First of all, the concept of encompassing all time. So Allah is the first before anything existed and the last after all ends. So that means that he encompasses infinite time. His existence transcends the past, present, and future, reminding us that time itself is a creation within his boundless reality. So this eternal nature invites reflection on the permanence of the divine amidst the fleeting moments of our lives. Right? So this is a very important concept that we need to be aware of. In addition to that he is present in all spaces. So again, the concept of al-awwal and al-akhir, which are the names that we are pondering about now, they transcend time, they transcend space. So we cannot say that God is present in a certain time or that he is there found in a certain place. There's no such thing, right? So another thing here is that he is present in all spaces, so he is the ascendant above all creation, yet also intimate. He's close to every heart. So while Allah's majesty fills the heavens and the earth, His presence intimately surrounds and dwells within each being, perceivable through faith and reflection. So this omnipresence assures believers that no place or moment is beyond His watchful care and loving attention. Another thing here is that there is balancing between greatness and closeness. So these names, they unite vast grandeur and intimate nearness in a beautiful harmony. So Allah's majesty inspires awe and reverence, while His closeness brings comfort and hope. Through understanding this balance, believers are encouraged to approach their Creator with respect while nurturing a heartfelt connection that transforms worship into a personal and profound experience. And again, let me stop here for a second and share with you a very important notion. So everything leads to Him. So as believers, it may be easy to conceptualize that God is the beginning of everything and the end. However, living this name requires more than just knowing, right? For us to begin thinking of God, like, for example, every morning when we wake up, there has to be something in our hearts that there is to show us that that our hearts are full of love of Him, right? So, for example, many of us may know someone who has been in love. So she talks to her beloved in the morning, and it's the last thing that she does at night that she checks on him, right? So simply connecting to his beloved sets the tone for the whole day. Okay. So do we have that kind of relationship with God? And if we do not, how can we start one? That's the question. So do we have that kind of relationship with God or not? Is He the first thing that comes to our mind when we wake up in the morning? So the secret is living the knowledge that Allah is al-awwal and al-akhir. It is making a conscious effort to remember Him at the beginning and at the end of everything. So the fruits of this will be immediate. Allah tells us in the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, unquestionably, by the remembrance of Allah, hearts are assured. Ala bidhikrillah tatma'inna al-qulub. All right, so He also tells us that, so remember me, I will remember you. Uzkuruni azkurkum. And the Prophet ﷺ tells us, remember Allah during times of ease, and He will remember you during times of difficulty. So just like a person who's in love finds comfort in the mention of his or her beloved, imagine the effect on your heart of remembering the absolute source of power, of love, of peace before you do anything. So putting into practice the knowledge of God's attributes as the first and the last brings us back to our ultimate purpose until the meanings of these names are truly engraved in our hearts. All right, so back to our presentation. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So come those two beautiful names, Al-Zahir, the manifest, right, and Al-Batin, the hidden. So He is both. He is Zahir, He is the manifest. He appears in everything. He is shown in everywhere, and at the same time, He's the hidden. So the manifest, in meaning that there is visible manifestation. So Allah is Zahir, evident in His creation, in His power, and signs that surround us. His governance is obvious in the order of the universe. You cannot just overlook this. So even though we cannot see Him, He is present in all His creations. Something else is that He is the supporter of the faithful. So the Quran tells us that Allah supports the believers, showing His manifest help in their triumphs. This also encourages external worship. So awareness of Allah's manifest attribute motivates sincerity in outward worship, aligning action with belief. So again, I know that being a Muslim, it actually means that that we should believe that there is no physical manifestation of God subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right. So there is no way, because any any appearance of God in this life means that he has space and time. Not anything that you can see or touch, it has space and time, and God is beyond space and time, so he cannot be manifested in terms of physical existence, right? But his powers and his names and his attributes, they can and they are actually manifested in his creation, right? And that is why there are several verses in the Quran that encourage us to contemplate. What should we contemplate? We contemplate his creations. Why? Because through this, we get the feel of certain attributes. So, for example, when you contemplate the mountains, you get the feel, the idea, of his supremacy, of his power. When you contemplate flowers, you actually get to see and understand and breathe in the name of the most beautiful, and so on and so forth, because whoever creates whatever there is, okay, has certain his attributes are actually reflected in those creations. So this is how he is manifested. He is seen through his creations for now, all right? Because in the thereafter, things change. Okay. So this is something that we need to understand. And then you go to al-batin, the hidden. So Allah's intimate knowledge, right, is the hidden from sight. As I just said, there's no way that he would be manifested through sensory perception. Is beyond all that we see, right? So Allah's true essence is concealed from sensory perception for now. And something else is that he knows every hidden thought. So Allah knows what is in the hearts and minds. There is nothing escaping his intimate knowledge. And that is something that for those with a pure heart will be very assuring, because if there are, God forbid, that you're going through a very difficult time, too difficult to actually express in words, just your knowledge that he knows what you're going through, because he created you, he even created those, tests that you're going through in the first place. So that in itself would make you feel that all you need to do is just put your hand on your heart, for instance, and your tears would say everything. You don't even have to, perform dua if you can't. You don't have to supplicate if you can't, knowing that he knows everything inside you. That's so relieving. Another thing is it encourages inner purity. So remembering al-batin, the name al-batin, the hidden, inspires us to purify our inward status, and reconcile with our Creator. So whatever is going inside your heart, your mind, you need to watch that, because this is what actually God sees and hears and knows. He knows everything inside out. So that brings us to balancing external and internal worship. Okay, so that's a very, very important concept here, because knowing that Allah has both names, al-zahir, meaning the manifest, and al-batin, the hidden, then actually even our worship, the way we worship him, should actually include both the external and the internal. If we're only worshiping a God who is only perceived or seen, okay, and he is manifested, but he is not hidden. He is not, into the hidden or the intricate parts of us. Then what we will do is that we'll be only concerned with the outer worship, right? But knowing that Allah is both al-zahir and al-batin, so it is never enough to perform the deeds. You actually have to also be purified from the inside, which brings us to the intention. That is why maybe all forms of worship that God has asked us in Islam, they first have to be preceded by intention. Otherwise, they are not performed. And whether it's prayers or 5 prayers before you start your prayer, you have to have the intention, and you have to know which prayer you're performing. Is it al-Fajr, or is it al-Dhuhr, or is it al-Asr, or is it al-Maghrib, is it al-Isha, right? So you really need to know which one. So that's the intention, right? And you need to intend, you need to purify the heart and to be fully focused and try and gather your thoughts, your heart into what you are performing, knowing that you're now you're linking yourself with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your heart and your soul facing God subhanahu wa ta'ala, all right? And so on and so forth with all other forms of worship. So let us take a look here what it says here. First thing is external acts matter. We cannot just overlook external acts. So outward worship like prayer and charity, they are critical and they must be sincere at the same time. Meanwhile, the internal state also matters. So God judges by intention and knows hidden feelings. So inner sincerity is also a very important key. And then the unified submission. We are called to integrate both visible actions and internal purity in devotion to Allah. So we are asked to do both. Okay? Now, the practical steps to reflect Allah's names in daily life. So if He's al-awwal and al-akhir, that means that we need to begin and end with Allah's name. So before you start anything, try and remember His name. By remembering His name, you're remembering Him. You remember His attributes, remember His deeds. You remember His status. So you start your day, your journey, and endeavors invoking Allah's name to align priorities with Him. Something else is memorize supplication. So incorporate Quranic and prophetic du'as, referencing Allah as the first and the last. And then you contemplate divine signs, reflect on how Allah's attributes manifest in nature and in answered prayers. And sometimes even His answers, all right, are there even without us praying in the first place. So you need to also contemplate that and see how the first and the last is actually manifested if you were able to actually see that you are linked to those names. So if you have someone or something in your life that comes first, that is even more important in your life than Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you really need to use the name Al-Awwal several times and ask Him, supplicate to Allah, and ask Him to free your heart from that, whatever you're attached to, so that God comes first in your heart, not only, in memory, but also in your heart. Something else is seeking intimacy with Allah, the heart's journey. That reminds me of a very beautiful verse in the Quran that says, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. And those who believe in Allah, they love Him the most. Okay? So, and by the way, this ayah, this verse has actually worked miracles in my life, because at a certain point, I was very honest, and I did confess that unfortunately, in that phase in my life, God was not really the first place in my heart. Okay, so I started supplicating. I started doing dua, and one of the things that I did was actually repeated this verse several times every day. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. Those who believe, or the believers, they love Allah the most, right? And more than anything else. So by repeating verses or repeating dua, first of all, it arouses awareness. So it makes you aware that there is something wrong that you need to fix. And another thing, by performing dua, you're actually seeking God's guidance, because there is no way for you to overcome whatever you're going through except with His assistance. So dua also enables you to do so. And then the beauty of finding how He answered your prayers, that in itself brings you even closer to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So seeking intimacy with Allah, the heart's journey, first thing is yearn for divine closeness. So craving nearness to Allah in itself as al-batin moves the heart to deeper worship and trust. And then purify the heart and intentions. So true intimacy requires cleansing the heart from envy, from hatred, from falsehood, which then brings us to the consistent night devotion. So following the Prophet's example, night prayer nurtures closeness and spiritual peace. And I'm sure that you know that night prayers doesn't have to mean that you spend all night, in supplication and prayers. No, even 2 rakas can sometimes do the whole thing. You can just finish your al-Isha and then follow this by 2 rakas, just with the intention of bringing yourself closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this brings us to key takeaways and next steps. Now, first of all, embrace Allah as the first and the last. So let this understanding shape your worldview, starting and ending all with Allah in mind. Second thing is seek balance in worship. So harmonize your external actions and internal purity to deepen submission and contentment. And then live with awareness of manifest and hidden. So observe Allah's signs around you while cultivating closeness through heartfelt remembrance. So again, you try and, as I've been telling you several times, that the best thing to do is supplication, reflection, and devotion. So these 3 things will actually bring you very much closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So from that, we understand that it's a journey, right? And actually, it's an ongoing journey. Excuse me. It ends when our life itself ends. So there's no such thing as I have a certain goal. Once I reach it, I have reached the destination. There's nothing else I can do. It's an ongoing process, right? And we need to enjoy the journey because it is a journey where we get to know ourselves. We get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we get to know more about life, about the essence of life, about the essence of our being, about the purpose of our presence here. So it's all about knowing and opening our eyes, opening our hearts to receive the answers, to see the signs, to read through everything that we go through in this life. So the one of the keys, major keys that would allow you to decipher all those messages is getting to know those names from different perspectives. Now, allow me to share with you an interesting video. It's like a 2-minute video about what 2 things that usually will happen to you once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you. And why did I choose this video? Because, the ultimate goal is for us to be loved by God subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And this is really, really very important. This is the most elevated kind of worship, that you don't worship God because you only desire the paradise, nor because you fear hellfire, but you're actually worshiping Him for Him. You're worshiping Him for His love, seeking His love, seeking His acceptance, seeking His His love. This is the ultimate goal that we should actually